Welcome to Beau Eminent Channel. The Business Plot, 1933. In the depths of the Great Depression, when President Franklin D. Roosevelt was pushing through the New Deal, rumors swirled of a shadowy conspiracy. According to Marine General Smedley Butler, one of the most decorated officers of his time, wealthy businessmen approached him to lead a coup against Roosevelt. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel. The plan, Butler claimed, was to mobilize a private army of veterans and establish a dictatorship modeled on Mussolini's Italy. Butler took the allegations to Congress, and while a committee confirmed parts of his testimony, no one was prosecuted. The story faded quickly, buried under the avalanche of Depression-era headlines. Today, it remains one of the strangest and most unsettling what-ifs in American history. The Bonus Army, 1932. Long before the civil rights marches or Vietnam protests, thousands of World War I veterans set up camp in Washington, D.C. They called themselves the Bonus Expeditionary Force, demanding early payment of bonuses promised for their service. Unemployed and desperate during the Great Depression, they built shantytowns in the capital and staged peaceful demonstrations. But President Herbert Hoover saw them as a threat. The election of 1876 and the Compromise of 1877. When Americans went to the polls in 1876, they could not have imagined the constitutional chaos that followed. Democrat Samuel J. Tilden won the popular vote and had more electoral votes than Republican Rutherford B. Hayes, just one short of a majority. In several southern states, results were contested amid accusations of fraud and intimidation. For months, the nation teetered on the edge of crisis until a secret deal was struck. Hayes would get the presidency, but in exchange, federal troops would be withdrawn from the South. This Compromise of 1877 ended Reconstruction and opened the door to Jim Crow segregation, a decision whose consequences lasted for nearly a century. The Ostend Manifesto, 1854. In the mid-19th century, Southern slaveholders were determined to expand their influence. A secret memorandum drafted by U.S. diplomats in Europe, known as the Ostend Manifesto, proposed that the United States should buy Cuba from Spain. If Spain refused, the document argued, America would be justified in seizing it by force. When news of the manifesto leaked, it ignited outrage in the North, where it was seen as proof of a slave power conspiracy. Though the plan collapsed, the scandal deepened the sectional divide that would eventually erupt in the Civil War. Coxey's Army, 1894. In the spring of 1894, during one of the worst economic depressions in American history, Jacob Coxey, a businessman from Ohio, had a radical idea: march on Washington to demand public works jobs for the unemployed. Thousands of desperate men joined him in what became known as Coxey's Army. They trekked across the country, only to be met with suspicion and hostility. When they finally reached the capital, Coxey was arrested for walking on the grass, and the demonstration was violently dispersed. Although the protest failed, it marked the first time ordinary citizens had marched on Washington to demand economic justice, a tactic that later movements would revive. The Whiskey Rebellion, 1794. Not long after the Revolution, the fledgling United States government faced its first major domestic crisis. To help pay off war debt, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton imposed an excise tax on distilled spirits. Farmers in western Pennsylvania, who often turned their grain into whiskey for trade, saw it as an attack on their livelihood. Angry mobs tarred and feathered tax collectors, burned barns, and openly defied federal authority. President George Washington, determined to prove the strength of the new Constitution, personally rode at the head of nearly 13,000 troops to suppress the rebellion. The show of force worked, the uprising collapsed without a major battle. But the controversy left a lasting question: how far could the federal government go in enforcing unpopular laws? The Anti-Masonic Party, 1820s to 1830s, In the early 19th century, secret societies captured the American imagination. When a New Yorker named William Morgan mysteriously vanished in 1826 after threatening to expose the secrets of Freemasonry, many believed the Freemasons had murdered him. Outrage swept across the country, spawning the first third party in U.S. politics, the Anti-Masonic Party. They argued that the Freemasons wielded dangerous, hidden influence over government and justice. For a brief moment, the party gained traction, even running presidential candidates and winning seats in Congress. But their success quickly faded, and the controversy dissolved into history, an early reminder of America's recurring suspicion of shadowy elites. Japanese balloon bombs, 1944–1945. During World War II, Japan devised a strange and dangerous weapon, giant hydrogen balloons carrying bombs, designed to float across the Pacific Ocean on the jet stream. More than 9,000 were launched, with hundreds reaching the western United States. Most caused little damage, but in May 1945, one exploded in Oregon, killing 6 people, the only civilian casualties from enemy action on the U.S. mainland during the war. The government censored reports of the attacks, fearing panic and wanting to prevent Japan from learning of their success. For decades, the balloon bomb campaign remained a little-known footnote to the war, despite being one of the earliest examples of intercontinental warfare. The Great Flu Mask Controversy, 1918–1919. As the Spanish flu swept across America, killing hundreds of thousands, cities scrambled to impose emergency health measures. San Francisco became the epicenter of one of the first great battles over public health mandates. Authorities ordered citizens to wear masks in public, with violators fined or jailed. Critics called the mandates unnecessary, ineffective, or even a violation of personal liberty. In January 1919, an anti-mask league held a mass rally of thousands, demanding the ordinance be repealed. The controversy foreshadowed modern debates over masks and government power during pandemics, yet it is rarely remembered today. The lost billions in Iraq, 2003–2004. In the chaos following the U.S. invasion of Iraq, Washington shipped billions of dollars in cash, mostly shrink-wrapped stacks of $100 bills, into the war zone to fund reconstruction and pay local contractors. Today, the story of America's lost billions is a forgotten symbol of waste and mismanagement during the occupation of Iraq.